shadow in the government's game. Born as a child with no face and no name. They stole my past to leave me cold and alone. Always searching for a place I could call home. I was lost in the dark, just a tool in their hand, till she put me close and helped me understand. Now the fire inside is starting to rise. I can see the truth through 1,000 lies. Now I tear through the veil, leave holes in the sky. I can read every thought in the blink of an eye. And I cut mine a witch, she's the magic in me. Yeah, I finally found what they took from me. With a hellhound beside me, I'm standing my ground. No longer a ghost that's never been found. In the dead of the night, I can hear the call. All the ghosts of my past scratching through the wall. My eyes change colors, the power has grown. With Crowley the hound, I am never alone. I used to be hollow, a man made of glass, but now I am reclaiming every year that has passed. Every memory is falling right back into place. I know every name and I remember every face. Now I tear through the veil, leave holes in the sky. I can read every thought in the blink of an eye. Danica, my witch, she's the magic in me. Yeah, I finally found what they took from me. With a hellhound beside me, I'm standing my ground. No longer a ghost that's never been found. I ain't running no more, yeah, I'm ready to fight. Gonna settle that debt in the depth of the night. They tried to break me, they tried to erase, but they can't hide the blood from the scars on my face. The veil is thin and the engine is hot. I'm taking back everything that they thought I forgot. Now I tear through the veil, leave holes in the sky. I can read it all in the blink of an eye. Danica, my witch, she's the magic in me. Yeah, I finally found what they took from me. With a hellhound beside me, I'm standing my ground. No longer a ghost that's never been found. I remember it all now. Every single face. I'm coming for you in the dead of the night.
Hello everybody, it's me, Henry. This here is going to be number 13, and going to take you back. I had been told by the family that I was to be good and not be doing any strange shit. So, the reason they told me this is because I hadn't seen my cousins and relatives in a little while, so me and Mom was gonna go up and see the relation on her side, her sisters and brothers and their kids. Well, at that particular time, I was one of the older grandkids, so the younger ones would always like to go follow around. Because I was always in the woods, they kind of looked at me as kind of like a Davy Crockett, Daniel Boone type. Which I guess because I spent a lot of time in the woods when I wasn't in the projects, guess you kind of think of me like that. On this particular incident, we went to my grandma's. That's where everybody congregated, my mom's. And back then she lived outside of this little town and down kind of in a valley, so they always called it the holler. You know, anytime you heard any of the relatives say the holler, that meant they was talking about Grandma's place. She had a small house, but it was home to them. That's all that mattered. Well, all the way up there, my mom kept telling me, for God's sakes, whatever you do, don't be doing nothing that nobody understands. Try to be normal. Well, I listened and my ears buzzed all the way up there. Well, come to where the turnoff was, under the old gravel road back then, by the old cemetery, and kind of went up a little bit of a grade and started dropping off into the holler. Well, at the bottom of that hill, there was pretty much a one-lane bridge, and right just on the other side of that's where my grandma's property started. And it went all the way and up to the next hill on the top up there, and that was the end of her property. Well, us kids used to go there and explore all the time. And like the kids today, we made our own fun, because if not, you get your ass paddled and had to take a nap. Well, as we pulled in, the grandkids all come running out the door, slamming the screen door one at a time. Which really kind of irked my grandma. She didn't like the sound of a slamming screen door, but they was excited and forgot. And it was constant bang, bang, till the last one filed out. And of course, a couple of the aunts and uncles come out to see what they was running to the driveway for. Make sure they wasn't going to run out in the road. Well, got out of the car, and of course they surrounded me like a bunch of little guineas. Mom said, "You remember what I told you?" "I will." She goes, "But have a good time." Well, we always did, because I'd keep them entertained. We'd sometimes go up the big hill and walk around the pasture and just kind of walk around, look for rabbit tracks, maybe some deer tracks, just anything to have fun. Well, the kids was all like, "Well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?" I said, "Well, I guess we can walk up on top of the hill there in the pasture and see if we find any tracks." Well, they was all in, so we walked out toward the road by the hedge bushes there and made the turn. There was a gate, so opened the gate, and big old aluminum gate, opened it and shut it behind us all. And we started out right there looking for rabbit tracks, bird tracks, any kind of tracks we could find, and try to figure out what they were. It was kind of a game with me, because I knew about every track out there, what it was and what made it. Every so often you'd find some rabbit droppings, with, how rabbits are. They kind of like a tomato worm. They eat and shit, little round pellets. Well, we decided we was going to track that rabbit in that wet soil before it got up into the pasture, and we was going to follow the trails through the little weeds and brambles and stuff. So we started out tracking that rabbit, and for whatever reason we got top of that hill. I stopped, and across the road from Grandma's house there was an old house. So I couldn't get my mind unfocused from it. A lot of things was running through my mind. That was an old abandoned house. It had been for years. Well, the guy had owned a local grocery store in that little town. That piece of property had been in their family since his great-grandpa. It had just been passed down and passed down until his dad got it. And his dad raised his family there, and they up and scattered around the area. Some of them left the state, moved to other places, but the one stayed. He opened up a grocery store called the IGA. A lot of people may not know what an IGA is, but it's just a small little mom and pop store. And he was a good guy. Well, I kept staring at that house, trying to figure out, curiosity got the best of me, and wondering what it was like back in those days, early 1900s. What it must have been like for a man and woman to be living there and having some kids running around. And of course now it was just surrounded by a fence, and they had cows running in there to eat the pasture down. And during the hot days, them cows would go up early on the hillside around that old house because it's nice and cool. Well, I was trying to imagine. All the kids was asking questions, what was I doing? What was I looking at? So I proceeded to tell them that I was just trying to imagine what it would have been like in that house down yonder there. And he's like, well, tell us about it. Well, what my mom had been telling me all along kind of went in one ear and right out the other. Well, I started talking and weaving a story with what I could see in my head, but I wanted facts. Well, the more I talked, the more curiosity took a hold. Logic kind of just went out the window. Wasn't enough room in my head for both. So I told the kids, I said, here's the plan. Now we're going to go back down the hill through that gate, and we're going to close it real quietly, and you got to be quiet. You can't be talking loud because the parents might hear us and come out there and tan our hides good. Now we get down there, we walk along the fence, go back in the corner, walk that fence down past the outhouse and down toward the barn. Go behind the barn there, follow that fence out to the road by the bridge. Now, if we go across that bridge, one of them hawks in the house going to see us, and we're going to get screamed at and get a licking. And I'm probably going to get the worst of it. So what we're going to do is, when we get to the corner of that fence and that bridge, we're going to squeeze through right there. There's an opening there, just big enough that we could squeeze through there. We go underneath that bridge, and we walk on the rocks carefully so we don't get our shoes and stuff wet and get in trouble for that too. And we cut up around the rocks and go up there and walk that tree line down past that old house. Then we get in the other tree line and walk right straight to the house. We'd never be seen. But they thought that was an okay plan. Not bad for right off the top of my head. Back then I had a lot of wild ideas about getting around things and people without getting caught. Never was one for much getting in real trouble, but just mischief. Kind of like Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn. We had adventures. Never knew where the adventure was going to take us, but that day, it took us to that old house. So, while we was walking along the tree line by the creek, I figured they'd know what I was saying. I said, hey, how'd you like to take a walk back in time? Well, they didn't really understand, but they was in. I said, well, if everybody's in agreement, nobody's disagreeing, and you won't tell on me, I'll let you have a glance into the past. But they was all excited. I said, but you can't tell on me. No matter if you get mad at me, you can't tell on me. But they was in agreement. They wasn't going to tell because they wanted to see what I was talking about. They didn't understand, not quite. They was going to get a big shocker. Well, we walk up toward the old house, and like I said, it's an abandoned old house. That time we got right to where the yard would have been back in those days. We stepped to a vapor, which was a portal that I opened. We stepped into it and ended up right at the front door of that old house. Well, since I was the oldest, I'd take a peek in. Looked in there, and there was an old white-headed man, kind of heavy-set, suspenders on, baggy drawers, and a white shirt. Had a big old giant mustache and beard, snow-white hair, kind of wavy and about shoulder length, combed it all straight back. He was in there working away on a project with wood. Well, I kept watching, and they was all tugging at my pants and my shirt. What do you see? What do you see? Hold on. I'm watching this old man, and he's just whistling as he's working, and I don't see no kids or no woman. So while I'm sitting there peeking through the glass, through the front door glass, watching, the kids bumped me, and I hit my head on the door. That old man looked straight at me. I was like, oh, shit. Well, he started walking toward the door, and he had one of these big, looked like a bark stripper. Had handle at each end, the blade in the center. I guess they call it a draw knife. He come walking over the door. Them kids is squatted down, you know, and I'm just standing there looking. He opened the door, and what are you kids doing? We always look over here and just wonder what you was doing. If you don't mind us asking. He goes, well, didn't anybody tell you it ain't nice to stare through a window or a door at somebody and not make yourself known? I said, yeah, I just forgot. I was kind of fascinated what you were doing with that there draw knife in your hand. He said, well, I make furniture. He said, used to, I'd go around over there to that little shed there, and I'd work in there. That way I'd be close to the wife and kids, in case she needed me to come in and mend a shoe or tan somebody's hide. But he said, once the wife passed away, I just work here in the house. When I get done, I just sweep everything right out the door. He said, this is where I feel closest to her. He said, my kid's grown, and most of them moved away, but there's still a few around here, somewhere. He said, I ain't seen them in a while. He said, I seen the one that still works out here on the property, because I don't much see the others. He said, well, where in the hell's my manners? Come on in. He says, is there any one of you that don't like cookies? Why, heck, everybody likes cookies. He said, I got some oatmeal raisin. Hey, I'm in. So we come in, and he got this great big huge chicken cookie jar out. Lowered it down. Each one of us kids grabbed a cookie, and He grabbed him a big old handful in his big old bear paws, and he said, all I got's water or milk. Well, he started lining the glasses up, and everybody got their little glass of milk, and he got him a big old giant glass. And we all got around the table there and sitting there dipping our cookies in the milk and like he was doing and eating them. But that was pretty good stuff. So I started out asking questions, and in between bites and slurps, he'd give me an answer. I was learning a lot. He told me that most everything inside that house, he built that house. And all the furniture in it, he built that too. Well, he took us a tour of the house, and man, it didn't look nothing like it did before when we seen it. It was all nice and cleaned up. He said even though the wife's gone, I still take 2 days a week. I sweep and dust and clean. And he said, rest time's mine. He said, but I wouldn't want my wife showing up, being ashamed of the filth. So he said, I keep her clean and remember to my wife. And sometimes she comes to me when I'm asleep. He said, before she leaves, she always pats me on the shoulder, gives me a big hug and kiss on the forehead, and tells me, I'll watch over you, and when it's time for you to go, I'll be the one that comes and gets you. So he said, I wait anxiously, but I still have things to do here. So while we were sitting there talking, I noticed that seen some movement down by the creek. So I told him, I said, sir, I ain't trying to be mean or rush off or anything, but I think we got a tail. He looks out the window and he goes, oh yeah, he said, I see that boy a lot there across the road working on cars. Yeah, that's my uncle, that's the youngest uncle. He's a car fanatic. He got to make a lot of hot rods. He goes, well, maybe someday I get a meeting. Then maybe someday we'll bring him over. He goes, anytime you kids want to, he said, you just come over here, and he said, just knock on my door. Well, he kind of reminds you of Grandpa Walton, old Zebulon. So he walked us to the door, and we single file walked out and said our goodbyes and started heading back. Well, we didn't even make it to the creek, and my uncle popped up there. He had been watching us through the window. He started grilling us. And back then, my uncle was no nonsense. He's the one that lived with me in the old haunted house. But he was always good to me. He had more patience with me than he did most of them. Then again, I didn't give him no grief. But that time, I broke the cardinal rule. We wasn't supposed to go across the road, and I led him across the road, just like a bad dog leads the rest of the dogs into a mess of trouble. He goes, just what was you guys doing in there, and who was that old man? Well, I won't give the name here because the old man's long since gone, but he may still have family members alive, and I don't want them tacking my hide to the wall, and I don't want YouTube tacking me to the wall either. So I told my uncle his name, and that we were sort of invited. He goes, what do you mean sort of invited? You either were or you wasn't. I said, well, I opened up a portal. He goes, that's what I figured you did. What'd your mom tell you about that? I said, I know. Curiosity killed the cat. And he goes, yeah, and your mom probably killed you if you find out. He said, they wondered where you guys went because you disappeared down there by the bridge. So he said, I decided to come find you before they find out. But since I've been gone this long, they're going to be thinking that I'm tracking you guys. You better think of something good. Well, we followed the same path we took when Dan went under the bridge, come up by the fence there at my grandma's place, and walked around to the old barn and snuck past the old outhouse and along her pasture fence and walked there by the hedge toward the front door. Well, my mom come outside. I knew I was in for it. She gonna tan me good. My uncle whispered something to her, and she looked at me and called me to the side, and she goes, "What did you do?" I was over there at the house across the road talking to that old man. There ain't nobody living in that house. Well, my uncle said, I didn't really see anybody, but they was in the house, and I don't know where in the hell they got the cookies and milk, but they was talking to somebody that I couldn't see. Well, one of my cousins was kind of like catfish at that time. They had more mouth than they did brains. It's because they was young. They didn't know any better. They was like, we know that old man. We sat there and had cookies and milk with him, and he showed us around the house. My mom pulled me further aside and she goes, did you do what I think you did? Well, yeah, I did. I'd get it worse if it was a lie. So I told the truth. Yeah, I did. Who was the old man? I said, the guy that owns the grocery store, the IGA? Yeah. I said, it was his grandpa. So you took them back in time through one of those things. Would you call it a portal? Yeah, through one of those to see this old man. I said, well, not exactly. Yes, I did take them over there. Yes, I took them through a portal, but it wasn't to show them who the old man was. I had lots of questions, and that old man had the answers I was looking for. What kind of answers are you looking for? That's why I wanted to know who lived there and what he looked like. What it was like back in those days. I said, but I must have took a wrong turn because I got there after his wife passed away and his kids moved out. He was just there by himself. I said, but he told us we'd come back any time. And she goes, remember what I told you? Yeah, I remember. So why'd you do it? I said, I told you. I like history. Well, how's a better way to find out history than go straight to the source? Somebody who lived in that time. But did you have to take everybody else where they wanted to go? They're younger than you. Yeah, which means they wanted to follow me. What was I supposed to do, leave them behind? They all had fun. Nobody got hurt. You could have lost everybody, including yourself. You're very narrow-minded, Mom. I've been doing this in the projects for quite a long time. I know what I'm doing. Well, me and you and your dad are going to have a talk tonight. I was like, oh, shit. Oh, well, I deserved it. I didn't follow orders. I never was good at following orders. I always thought orders was kind of like the hallway to the prison. So they're all telling their parents about what we've seen, and my uncles decided that they're going to go there and see for themselves. All the grandkids had to go in and take a nap except for me. They made me take them back over there to that house. So we walked out the driveway, crossed the old gravel road, and there was a yard gate there, and we opened it, lashed it back so the cows didn't get out, and walked right there straight to the house. Well, went around to the back door, like where we had entered. My youngest uncle opened the door up, and Jesus Christ, that place was a mess. There was lumber stacked all over the place, and tin, old broke chairs, dirt and dust everywhere. They looked around, looked at me. They're like, y'all got an imagination. Like, what do you mean? Well, look at this place. Ain't no way somebody be living in here. They thought maybe an old bum might have got in there, an old hobo come in off the tracks. Well, we got ready to leave. And now here's the funny thing. We got ready to leave, and that draw knife was hanging on the wall. It didn't have a bit of dust on it. Still had a nice, sharp, shiny edge on it. My uncle stopped, and they looked at that, and they turned and looked at me, and I said, yeah, that's his. That's what he was using when we come over here. Well, we left out of there, and of course I got my ass chewed all the way back to the house, and they all act like they was disappointed, but my youngest uncle, he's like, I wasn't going to dare tell them what you did. He said, they would have scalped you. Yeah, you're probably right, because they're mad as hell right now. Well, we went back over to the house and sat over there, and of course my grandma come out like an old biting sow. She had that fly swatter in her hand, snapping it on her hand. I was like, oh shit, that old woman's really mad. She goes, any more trouble out of you, and I'm going to use this fly swatter on your bare legs. Well, I surely didn't want to see that happen, because I've seen that before. I'd felt it a couple times. So I decided I better go in there and lay down on the floor on the pallet with my cousins and catch a cat nap and let them defuse for a while. Well, later that afternoon, us kids woke up and decided we'd go down and play in the barn. And they was like, can you do that again? What do you mean? Can you open up another one of those things again? Well, all they said to me was, my mom anyway, don't be opening up portals and going into them. So I took it to the limit. We went to the back part of the barn in the hayloft and opened that big giant door. And as she said, do not open no more portals and go in them. That's her exact word. So I figured I'd take it right to the line. I said, how'd you guys like to see some real Indians? So I opened up another portal, let them look through it, kind of like a window. There's all these Indians up there on the hillside. They camping above the creek there. Well, they was fascinated as hell. We could see them, but they couldn't see us. So we sat there and watched and seen the women coming down to gather water from the little creek there behind the barn, and all their teepees and stuff up there on top. And the reason why they put their teepees up there is because if there would be a shower come or a thunderstorm, that creek would rise and it wouldn't get them or their tents and their horses. So they put it up on top of the hill, camp up there, and take the water to that place. Well, we had sat there and watched, and all of a sudden it sounded like a bunch of thunder coming. But you could feel it in the barn. Kind of a vibration. Got to looking, and here come a stampede of buffaloes right toward that creek, below these Indians. Those Indians, the braves got up and grabbed their bows and spears and We watched them. Them buffalo got a drink down there and wallowed a little bit, and then they come up out of the creek, and there was a plateau just back to the north, big grazing patch of weeds and sweetgrass, and them buffalo must knew where it was at, 'cause that's where they headed. And we was watching. Well, it looked like a bunch of dogs out there, but it was those Indians crouching, sneaking through the weeds. The old women and young women with the kids' little papoose strapped on their backs, they was coming up the rear slowly. If you know anything about buffalo, if they stampede like a herd of cows, they'll run over anything. They don't care what it is. Trees, people, horses, they don't care. But them big old woolly buggers, they were huge, and every so often while they was eating, raised and looked, and them Indians would stop dead in their tracks. The buffalo would watch a little bit, and they go back down to grazing. Finally, them Indians got it close enough to make an attack, and them buffaloes started to take off. Several of them buffalo got hit by arrows and spears, and some of them fell, and the rest of them kept going. So then, here come the women and the older guys, and they proceeded to clean some of those buffalo, and we were sitting there watching through the barn. Well, my youngest aunt, we didn't even hear her. She climbed up in the barn and come back there. We was watching. Looked like we was watching TV. Some of us were laid down flat watching, and the bigger ones was stood up looking over the smaller ones laying down. My aunt didn't say nothing, and she got up there with that. She was seeing what we was seeing. She was amazed, shocked, and scared shitless. But how we were seeing this, it was like a movie reel, but it was in real time. I turned around and there she was. That portal just went closed like a curtain. All we could see then was just the creek and the hill where the Indians had been, and off to the right where them buffalo had been. Some of them got killed to feed the Indians, and my aunt goes, "You really can do that." Do what? I play dumb. She goes, "You opened up a portal, didn't you?" I said, "Well, you won't tell?" She was always my favorite aunt because she was closer to my age, but she was quite a bit older, but still. She said, "I ain't going to tell," but she said, "Next weekend, I'm going to go talk to your mom. Next weekend, I want you to come spend the weekend, and I want you to do that for me and my friend." Well, her friend, my grandpa worked for her. He also owned the property aside of him. I said, "Well, if you won't tell," I said, "I just got in trouble. I'll go back to the house." She goes, "I won't tell." She goes, "At least you stayed on the property and opened up a portal out there instead of going out and crossing through it." She goes, "How long you been doing this?" You never ever tell all your secrets. Otherwise, they ain't secrets no more, because that person get mad at you, they go tell on you. So I told her, "Oh, just a while. I learned how to do it." She said, "Well, they're getting ready to eat supper, and y'all might want to head back and wash your fingers before they start hollering." So we climbed down the loft and headed toward the house, and single file up to the bathroom sink, wash our fingers, and our dirty little faces. We looked like a bunch of little pigs that had been rooting in the mud. Because we've been playing. Going through a portal and looking through a portal and playing in the barn. Well, we sat there and ate, and nobody said nothing. But my aunt sat right beside me, my youngest aunt. Back in those days, she was funny as hell. She was almost like one of us kids. Most times she took off on a lot of the adventures. She led them. But on days that she didn't lead them, well, yours truly would gather the tribe up, and we'd head out on adventures. That wasn't the only time I opened up portals, but anyway, she talked to my mom, see if I'd come spend the weekend, next weekend with her, and my mom said, sure, on my way to work, I'll just come by early and drop him off. Well, nobody told on me, so it was all cool. Well, we all said our goodbyes, and everybody went their separate ways. Well, on the way home, I thought I'd be smart, and I'd curl up in the back seat and go to sleep. I figured if I was asleep, I couldn't get chewed out. I didn't like chewing back then, and I don't like them today. I'd just soon somebody hit me with a skillet or a rolling pin as the bitch at me for 10 minutes or longer. So I'm back there, and my mom lets me go to sleep till I get home. She told my dad about it, and my dad goes, what did we tell you? I said, you know how it is. Curiosity killed the cat. I ain't no cat. Well, we'll decide what we're going to do with you later. No more of this shit. Well, I knew that meant you better not do it again. So to me, all that meant was, if you're going to do it, don't get caught. But I'd agree to anything. Keep and get my hide tanned a good one. So they're deciding on what they're going to do. So they decide that they was going to make me go out there with a corn knife and cut all the weeds away from around the barn and the back lot there. That was quite a punishment. Out there and cutting them weeds with a corn knife. But hell, I'd take cutting those weeds any day over getting an ass beaten. You know. So I gladly went out there and done what I was told to go do. Dad came out there to check on me, and he goes, so your aunt wants you to come up there next weekend and spend the weekend down at the holler. Yeah. He goes, you ain't gonna do this again, are you? Well, I really didn't lie because I had my finger behind my back crossed. See, that was kind of like having one foot on the base and the other foot not on the base. You were still covered. So I had my finger behind my back crossed, and I was like, no, I ain't do it again. So I really wasn't lying, because I had my fingers crossed. That got me out of it, see. So come the following weekend, my mom took me up there and dropped me off at my grandma's house, and me and my aunt got to conspiring like two thieves in the night getting ready to hit a bank. She was going to go horseback riding tomorrow, so we got to get some sleep. And she said, I'm going to take you to this one place. And she said, then I'll tell her to close her eyes, and then you open up a portal. And she always acts and looks like an Indian. She wants to feel and see what it was like back in those days. I said, I got you. She goes, okay, that's the plan. So we lay down in bed and went to sleep. Next morning we went out there and here this girl come down the gravel road, down the hill. She rode a big old paint horse. She had kind of a light brown hair, real long, about the center of her back. Real nice girl. I won't use her name because I don't have permission. She still rides horses today, and she lived way out west. They own a big old ranch out there. And Anyway, she was my aunt's best friend. I'd known her for quite a long time. So we started out horseback riding, and we headed to the north, and they was telling me about a big old lake up there. Years later, I ended up doing a lot of fishing that lake. That's some good fishing there. Big old fish. They almost bite on a bare hook. Well, anyway, we was headed up there, and my aunt, she was riding her dad's horse, and I was riding with her, and this other girl, she was riding the paint horse by herself, and she proceeded to tell my aunt, she goes, if you want to, you can come over and ride with me on my horse. Give you kind of, a little bit of stretch. She says, no, we're okay. And she kind of looked at me and winked and laughed. She goes, what are you guys cooking up? Oh, no, we ain't cooking nothing up. Well, we'd rode quite a ways and come up there by this big lake, so they decided to get off the horses, and that was my cue. They was going to let them horses get a drink, and then that's when I was going to do this, and she was going to turn around to walk away with her horse, and there it was going to be. Well, the plan sounded good, and it was laid good, but shit happened. I opened the portal up, and there was these Indians following these buffalo. They'd getting a drink. Well, finally, I told my aunt, I said, God damn, so horse, what's the hold about, 50, 60 gallon or what? So she heard it groan. She goes, hey, would you look at that? This girl looked through this portal that I'd opened. But them buffaloes had turned and was now headed straight from where we was at. That girl got so scared, she didn't put her foot in the stirrup. She jumped up into the saddle, and across the lake they went, and of course, my aunt's horse followed. Right about the time they got to the opening, I closed that son of a bitch like pulling a curtain. The dust had come through that damn portal and about dusted us out, but there that girl was, hanging onto the saddle horn, going across the lake. We sitting over there just rolling, laughing. She got on the other side of the lake over there, and her and her horse come up out of the water, and we're sitting there laughing. Well, my aunt's horse followed, so it come up out of the water. She goes, I don't know what y'all laughing about. I'm over here with both horses. You two over there, no horse, but you're dry. My aunt said, why don't you come back across the lake, bring both horses? She goes, I ought to just leave you guys over there. She said, what the hell is that all about? Was I seeing things? My aunt said, come back over here and I'll tell you. So she rides all the way around the lake, around by the edge of the wheat field, and comes back over there, and she's scared shitless. My aunt said, Henry, can you do that again? I said, what about her? Is she going to take off? She goes, no, but show her what you did. So I opened the portal back up. Them Indians out there skinning out these buffalo. And she's like, what'll happen if I walk in there? I said, well, the way you're dressed, they'll probably think you're one of them. I said, hell, they might even keep you. I said, I can keep the portal open if you want to walk in there. I said, but you want to make sure you don't turn loose that horse, because you turn loose that horse in there, they'll keep it. A good prize paint, that's a prized possession right there. So she's debating on where to take her and her horse, and she gets up on the horse, and she goes, what do? I said, you just ride right straight into it. I'll stay here and make sure it stays open. she rides in, and all these Indians try and look. One of them old Indian maidens pulls out a big old giant knife and holds it up, and then points it at her and motions for her to come over. So she rides her horse over there, and she don't understand what they're saying, but that woman gives her a knife, and she starts helping them skin. But she gets that one buffalo done, her and these Indian maidens. She's trying to have a conversation with them. They don't understand her, and she don't understand them. But then she gets scared because here comes this one big old Indian on a real tall horse, and he's eyeballing that paint. She got on her horse, and then she hears she come back through the portal. Here come that old Indian following. Either one, he fell in love with the horse, or he fell in love with her. I ain't sure which, but I wasn't going to leave the portal open and lose my scalp. So I closed that damn thing. She was sitting there sweating bullets, and then she looked down her hand and she realized she still had the knife in her hand that old maiden had give her. Well, she still has that knife, and she's had it looked at several times. She keeps it in a safe in her house as a keepsake of that day to remember. That knife is priceless. They said they'd never seen a knife like that before, and they carbon dated it. It was really old. They want to know who the maker was and where she found it. But she could never tell because that would give away that it was me opening a portal, so she just told them she found it. She still has that knife. Last time me and my aunt talked to her, she showed us that she still had the knife. I suppose she still got it probably in that safe. That's where she keep it at. It's kind of a reminder that all ain't what it seemed to be. Well, I'd opened up portals several times after that for her and my aunt to look in and see different things. They always kept their mouth shut and never told on me, and I never got in trouble. But I didn't open up no more portals with my little cousins because I got caught. I didn't do that again. But I would take them, and even my youngest boy uncle, man uncle, whatever you want to call him, a couple times I opened up a portal for him. Let him see different things, but anyway, that was the story about that. I'd taken my cousins through one and opened up one for my aunt and her friend, and that girl was plumb enamored. She was fascinated with the Old West, and especially the Indians. She was real dark complected, kind of like me. I get real dark in the summer. Look almost like the whitest jigaboo you ever seen. But that was my story about that. I just thought I would share it because that's one of the big events that happened, that just to let people know that yes, I did, and yes, I still can open portals up to the past and go in them, or I can watch to them like they're a window. Well, this chip also let them people in the projects know that I was practicing. And I'd pay for it every time I did it. When it wasn't authorized by them to do it in the project, I was doing it on the side for fun. And I'd paid a hell of a price for it. They'd warned me several times, tortured me several times for doing it. I just kept on doing it. I was one of those dogs that just never learned to quit sucking eggs. I figured if I was going to be able to do this kind of stuff, I might as well be the best at it I could be. So I did. I practiced. I got really fast at it and really good at it. Even during hide and go seek time or flashlight tag time up there at the holler, I got so good I could almost snap a finger and one would open and I'd jump in it and it would close up and they'd walk right past me. I'd give it a few minutes, open the portal back up, step back out, and head for the gas barrel, which was the free base, they called it. You get there and you touch it, you was safe. Everybody else getting caught. But, that was me being a foolish kid. Didn't have a care in the world back in those days except for the projects. So anyway, I figured I'd share that with y'all. And I just want to remind you, too, that I got one big book wrote. Going to be getting it published sometime in the near future here. And there's going to be several because they're going to be in volumes. Kind of like the way I'm doing these videos, 1 through however many it takes to get her done. And that'll go more into depth. See, over on Ethan's channel, I get to talk about some of the things that happened in my life, some of my experiences. But here I get to go more in depth. In my books, I'll even go more in depth. I'll walk you through the processes. They're going to be a good read. So, stay tuned and I'll keep you abreast of what's going on with that. But I do got one book completed. And I'm working on the second volume. It's hard telling how many they're going to be because this goes all the way from when I was like 3 all the way up. And I might even do a bonus one. But I won't tell you about that one. But just trust me, it'll be a wing-dinger. A real barn burner. Of course, every time I talk on this here thing about my exploits and shit that I've done and been involved with, that just paints one more circle of that target right over top of my heart. By now, I've almost got a full target. But you know something? I figure it's better to tell everybody because this is what can happen and what still does happen. So anyway, y'all stay tuned, and if you like any of my videos, give me a thumbs up. It won't cost you a fucking dime. Hell, leave a comment if you want to. And subscribe. It'll help this channel out because right now I just got a few viewers. And it would really be nice if this channel would grow a little bit because as it grows, the better the content will be. So, stick with me, and I'll see you on the next one. Don't take no wooden nickels, and don't get mad, come home, kick the dog. Kick your kids in the ass when they bad. Till the next time, this is Henry, and I'll talk to you later.